In 1954, amidst Detroit's conservative GM leadership, engineer Ed Cole secretly launched a groundbreaking project, developing an engine that would revolutionize American performance and solidify Chevrolet's legacy, introducing the Chevy small block V8, a hidden masterpiece destined to become an icon. Known as Mighty Mouse, it delivered impressive performance from a compact size, revving over 6,000 RPM and dominating both streets and racetracks. This small V8 not only preserved legends but also excelled in racing and proved durable over time. In this video, we explore its hidden features, innovative design secrets, and the incredible stories that have contributed to its legendary status. Hit that subscribe button right away and hype if you've loved this video so far. 1. The secret revolution that changed everything. It was 1954 at GM's engineering headquarters in Detroit. While executives stayed loyal to their straight-six engines, Chevrolet's chief engineer, Ed Cole, had other plans. Working late hours in near secrecy, Cole designed, tested, and refined an engine so bold it could have cost him his career. Most people don't know this. The legendary Chevy small block V8 began as a secret project. Long before GM's leadership approved it, Cole believed in a compact, lightweight V8 that was powerful, affordable, and easy to service, a gamble no one else dared take. By 1955, his risk had paid off. Chevrolet introduced the 265 cubic inch small block V8, transforming the brand and American car culture. What started in the shadows became the most legendary and imitated V8 the world had ever seen. 2. Factory Mighty Mouse nickname. By late 1954, when the very prototypes of Chevy's new small block V8 finally came alive inside GM's testing labs, the engineers were stunned. Unlike Detroit's massive engines, this one seemed small and unassuming. However, when it fired up, its deep, powerful sound told a different story. That's when it earned its first nickname, Mighty Mouse. Just like the cartoon superhero, it was small in size but packed with knockout strength. Word quickly spread from GM's halls to garages and racetracks. By 1955, hot rodders were swapping them into lightweight cars and bragging about how this little V8 could outrun engines twice its size. 3. Heads can swap sides. The engineering genius that saved millions. It was 1955 and Chevy's small block V8 was rolling off the line with a clever trick no one else had thought of. Most car makers at the time built left and right cylinder heads as two different pieces. That meant double the tooling, double the cost, and double the headache when something broke. Chevy's engineers changed that thinking. Heads can swap sides. They designed the small block's cylinder heads to be perfectly symmetrical so that you could bolt them onto either side of the engine. That single choice paid off big. A farmer's mechanic in Kansas could swap a head from one side to the other without hunting down a left or right version. Racing teams only needed to carry half as many spares in their trailers, and back at Chevrolet's factories, it slashed production costs and sped up assembly. What looked like a simple design quirk turned into a money saver and a time saver across the board. Genius engineering hidden in plain sight. 4. Simple lifters for high RPM when less was more. In 1955, when Chevrolet's small block V8 debuted, most automakers were adding complex hydraulic lifters. They were quiet, but they limited how high an engine could rev. Chevy went the opposite direction with simple, solid lifters, and it paid off. Solid lifters meant nothing softened the valve action. Just sharp mechanical motion that let the engine breathe and rev far higher than expected. Most family cars of the mid-1950s wheezed out at 4,500 RPM, but Chevy's V8 pulled clean past 6,000. With a few hot rod tweaks, enthusiasts would wind them up to 7,000 or even 8,000 RPM. 5. First mass-produced engine with horsepower per cubic inch. The year was 1957, and Chevrolet did something that had never been done in Detroit. They took their 283 cubic inch small block V8 and paired it with the brand new Rochester Ramjet fuel injection system. The result? An engine that delivered 1 horsepower for every cubic inch. 283 horsepower from 283 cubic inches, straight off the showroom floor. This was a milestone that the entire performance world had been chasing for years. Even exotic European sports cars of the time struggled to hit that magic ratio. Many purpose-built racing engines also failed to meet expectations, but here was a Bel Air, a comfortable, family-friendly sedan delivering the holy grail of horsepower. It was the Ramjet's precise fueling that made the difference, and once word got out, it sent shockwaves through Detroit. 6. Odd applications worldwide, from boats to fighter jets. By the late 1950s, Chevy's small block V8 had already established its reputation on the streets, but its journey didn't end there. This durable engine quickly found applications in various areas, particularly in racing and workboats, due to its lightweight design and reliability in harsh conditions. In the Arctic during the 1960s, equipment manufacturers discovered that the V8 would start even in brutal sub-zero temperatures, a feat few engines could match. Industrial crews leaned on it too, hooking small blocks to generators and pumps that could run non-stop for weeks without complaint. By the 1970s, GM was licensing the design worldwide, and factories everywhere were adapting it into machinery, snowmobiles, and even farm equipment. And the wildest twist? In the Cold War era, modified versions of the Chevy small block even found their way into experimental fighter planes. 7. Saved the Corvette, the engine that rescued America's sports car. In the early 1950s, the Corvette was on life support. Chevrolet had built a car that looked the part of a sports car but felt more like a boulevard cruiser. Under the hood sat a straight six that struggled to keep up with family sedans, let alone compete with European machines. Sales were terrible, reviews tore it apart, and inside GM, whispers grew about pulling the plug on the Corvette entirely. Then, in 1955, the small block V8 engine made its debut. Overnight, the Corvette was reborn. Suddenly, it had the muscle to back up its sleek looks. Running with European exotics at a fraction of the cost, GM went from planning a quiet burial to ramping up production. The truth is simple. The small block didn't just power the Corvette, it flat out saved it. 8. Banned for being too good, NASCAR's fear of fuel injection. When Chevrolet rolled out its fuel-injected version of the small block in the late 50s, it was nothing short of a game-changer. The Rochester mechanical fuel injection system delivered flawless power, even through the tightest corners where carbureted rivals stumbled. Suddenly, Chevy racers were running so clean and so fast that competitors didn't stand a chance. NASCAR noticed, and they didn't like it one bit. In 1957, officials stepped in and banned fuel injection outright, labeling it an unfair advantage. It wasn't that Chevy broke the rules, it was that their tech worked too well. Racers were forced back to carburetors, and the innovation was shelved for the sake of competition. 9. Unusual oil filter placement. Form following function. When Chevrolet's small block V8 debuted in 1955, engineers faced an unexpected puzzle: where to put the oil filter. A standard spin-on filter wouldn't fit without colliding with other parts of the compact new engine. Instead of forcing a compromise, Chevy's team devised a clever workaround: a remote-mounted adapter that shifted the filter to the side. This seemingly odd solution turned out to be smarter than it appeared. It made filter changes easier for mechanics, protected the filter from exhaust heat, and left room for higher capacity filters. 10. No factory roller cam until the 1980s. Here's something that might surprise you: Chevy's legendary small block didn't get a factory roller camshaft until the 1980s. That's right, decades after racers had already been swapping them in for more horsepower and less friction, Chevrolet kept rolling with the old flat tappet design. It's almost funny when you think about it. The aftermarket was thriving, selling roller cam conversions to anyone chasing extra performance, while Chevy's production engines stayed stubbornly traditional. However, when Chevrolet finally gave in during the 1980s, the upgrade was immediate and game-changing, offering better performance, increased reliability, and a clear signal that the small block was ready for the modern era. 11. Shared parts with straight-six engines. Here's a clever bit of engineering thrift. Chevrolet's first small blocks actually borrowed parts straight from their older straight-six engines. We're talking about intake bolts and even the water pump design, some of which date back to the 1930s. At first, it sounds like cost-cutting, but really it was a smart move. By utilizing existing parts, Chevy reduced development expenses, made repairs easier for mechanics who were already familiar with the hardware, and ensured proven reliability from the outset. Instead of reinventing the wheel, they adapted what worked and funneled resources into areas that truly needed innovation. 12. Outlasted the big block in production, the tortoise and the hare. In the muscle car wars, the big block was the loud, bright star: massive displacement, insane power, and the ability to shred tires like nothing else. But when the dust settled, it was the small block that outlived it. Chevy officially stopped producing big block passenger car V8s in the 1990s, while the small block continued, evolving through technological updates into the fifth generation we still see today. The difference comes down to adaptability. The small block handled fuel shortages with improved economy, passed emissions tests with fuel injection, and remained relevant while the big block faded away. 13. Universal engine swap legend, the world's favorite transplant. By the 1960s and primarily through the 1970s, the Chevy small block had become more than just a Chevrolet engine, it was the engine swap of choice worldwide. Ford guys unwillingly admitted they wanted its bulletproof dependability. Mopar fans eyed its massive aftermarket support. Even import tuners in the 1980s and 1990s discovered that dropping one into their lightweight coupes turned them into street monsters. 14. Tiny displacement variants, the emissions era compromise. The 1970s hit American performance cars hard. Stricter emissions rules and fuel economy standards forced engineers to focus more on survival than horsepower. Tiny displacement variants. At the bottom of the lineup sat the 262 cubic inch small block, just 4.3 liters, producing under 110 horsepower in the mid-1970s. Compared to its large, fire-breathing predecessors, it was a shadow of what the small block used to be. Restrained by emissions equipment and built for compliance rather than excitement, it was weaker than many four-cylinder engines available today. But here's the thing, even at its weakest, the little 262 still maintained the small block's signature reliability. 15. First Chevy 5.8 with a spin-on oil filter, revolution in simplicity. Before the small block, changing oil was a messy, lengthy task. Cartridge filters were standard, needing special tools and patience. Chevy engineers decided to change this. The first Chevy V8 with a spin-on oil filter introduced GM's spin-on system, transforming the process. Oil changes became accessible to backyard mechanics. Simply swap the old filter for a new one in minutes without spillage or special tools. Though a minor update, it significantly improved accessibility and bolstered its reputation as the engine for everyday enthusiasts. 16. Unusual cylinder head bolt pattern, over-engineering for quality. Most engines use just enough bolts to secure the cylinder heads. Chevy, however, went all out. The small block featured a bold setup, 17 head bolts per bank. That's far more than most engines require, but that's precisely what made it special. While competing engines were prone to gasket failure or head gasket failure under harsh racing conditions, the Chevy remained rock solid. The extra bolts provided exceptional sealing strength, resulting in reliable performance and long-term durability. This overbuilt design became a key part of the small block's legendary toughness. 17. Bidirectional water pump. Chevy's obsession with symmetry extended beyond the cylinder heads to the cooling system as well. The early small block used a clever bidirectional water pump. You could install it on either side, left or right, just like the heads. That meant Chevy only needed to cast one type of pump, saving money in production and making things easier for mechanics and parts departments. It wasn't just about cutting costs, it streamlined repairs and influenced cooling system designs across the industry for decades. A small detail, but one that showed how forward-thinking Chevy's engineers truly were. 18. Was never called small block until 1965. For its first 10 years, Chevy's innovative V8 was simply referred to as the Chevy V8. It wasn't until 1965, when Chevrolet launched the large big block engine for the Impala and Corvette, that people needed a way to distinguish between the two. That's when the term small block was introduced. Ironically, there was nothing small about this engine's reputation. It was already a performance giant. Nonetheless, the nickname stuck and eventually became a part of car culture. Looking back, it's surprising that America's most famous engine went a decade without the name that would make it instantly recognizable worldwide. 19. Hot rod culture built around it. The Chevy small block didn't just power vehicles, it ignited a whole movement. Before its introduction, speed required rare parts and an expensive budget. Once it appeared, average enthusiasts could build quick cars in their garages. The junkyards overflowed with them, making them affordable and boosting the aftermarket parts market. Backyard mechanics could transform basic cars into high-performance hot rods without overspending. The engine became a leveler, giving working-class car lovers access to racing and fostering a lasting hot rod culture centered around the small block, an engine owned by the people. 20. Factory color changes. Everyone imagines a small block in Chevy orange, but the story is more complex. From the factory, Chevrolet utilized paint strategically to maintain the assembly process's organization. Some small blocks are painted in chartreuse, others in different shades of blue depending on their role. These colors weren't just for style, they served as signals. Chartreuse might indicate a special performance package, while blue could denote a marine model or an emission-specific setup. For the factory, this system reduced errors and increased production efficiency. Today, collectors view these unusual colors as rare treasures. 21. World's most mass-produced V8. The numbers don't lie. Here's a shocking fact. Chevrolet produced at least 108 million small-block V8 engines. That's more engines than most countries have citizens. If you lined them up end to end, they'd span entire continents. This wasn't just about pride, it transformed the automotive industry. The abundance of small blocks meant parts were accessible, affordable, and easy to find, which turned mechanics worldwide into experts by necessity. This isn't just the most produced V8, it's one of the most outstanding achievements in automotive mass production history, and likely no other engine will reach those numbers again. 22. Can make 700 horsepower with factory block. Here's the surprising part, what appeared to be just a basic grocery getter engine actually had the structure of a race engine hidden inside. Historically, racers realized they could modify the simple cast iron small block from the 1950s and 1960s by enlarging the cylinders, increasing the stroke with a longer crank, and creating 434 cubic inches of power. This allowed them to produce over 700 horsepower, using the same block found in your uncle's old Chevy. These engines were so durable that they seem to have been designed with performance in mind from the outset. 23. Used as a testbed for aluminum blocks. Long before LS engines popularized aluminum blocks, Chevrolet was already quietly testing them. The small block served as their platform for these lightweight prototypes. Aluminum offered notable weight reduction and impressive performance benefits, but the technology was expensive and still somewhat experimental at the time. Instead of placing them in every production vehicle, Chevrolet gave these engines to serious racers who could explore their limits and offer valuable track feedback. These early aluminum blocks weren't merely components, they were glimpses of the future, decades ahead. 24. Universal bolt patterns. One of Chevy's most intelligent decisions with the small block was maintaining consistency. Motor mounts, bell housings, and accessory bolt patterns remained unchanged for decades. This allowed a transmission from 1955 to fit directly onto a small block from 1995 without issues. For hot rodders and mechanics, this was invaluable. It simplified engine swaps into weekend projects and made cross-generational parts mixing straightforward. It also meant that mastering one small block effectively meant knowing them all. 25. Corvette ZR1's Gen 3 engines share its bore spacing. One of the most remarkable aspects of the Chevy small block is how much of its original design remains intact today. For instance, the Corvette ZR1's Gen 3 engines still use the same 4.4-inch bore spacing established by Ed Cole in 1955. This spacing, which measures the distance between cylinders, is more than just a number. It forms the core of the engine's identity. When Chevy introduced the LS series in the 1990s, they retained that spacing not for nostalgia, but because it was already ideal. Whether it's the legendary LS, LT, or the current L8T truck engines, they all carry the DNA of 1955. That's why every modern Chevy V8 still reflects the spirit of the original small block. That concludes the story of the Chevy small block V8, an engine that reshaped performance, saved legends, and became the most iconic V8 ever built. From secret labs to racetracks, from boats to fighter jets, its legacy is unmatched. Subscribe now for more untold stories of automotive history. Share your favorite small block fact or the wildest swap witnessed in the comments below. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.